Hey everyone! So I just wanted to make a really quick video to help you to further understand some of the information in the course about the difference between summary versus analysis. So if you've looked at the feedback on some of your discussion posts, you've probably seen that I'm asking you guys to focus less on summary and more on analysis. So what does that mean? Well, summarizing is important and it's a good first step, but analysis involves deeper thinking. And that's really what I'm looking for when I ask you to reflect and to answer prompts for these stories that we're reading throughout the semester. A summary, I would describe summary as a description of events that take place and the actions of the characters. So these are things that are explicit in the text and that you can glean from reading through the sentences. Also, the different elements of plot is something that you should be able to glean from reading through the text. I also included the Freytag's pyramid, the diagram of the different elements of plot, just to give you a visual reminder there. So analysis, on the other hand, like I said, involves a deeper level of thinking. When you're analyzing a text, especially a work of fiction, you're interpreting the character's actions and motivations. So you're asking yourself, why did this person react the way that they did to this event? Or why did this character respond to this other character in the way that he or she did? What are their motivations? What are the values and beliefs that are guiding this character's actions? Also, analysis involves examining how the setting and the social context of the story plays a role in the events. So for any story and for any human experience, really, nothing happens in a vacuum that's devoid of the setting that we're living in and the social context, the time period, and the things that are happening around us. So that's true, too, for these stories that we read, and it's important to think about how those two things, the setting and the social context, affect the characters and play a role in the sequence of events that happen in the story. Also, when you're analyzing, you're drawing conclusions, your own unique conclusions, from the connections that you've made from reading the text. So again, here's where you're drawing on your own experience, you're drawing on things that you've learned in life, or in classes, and you're making connections. I like to tell my students that their job is to connect the dots, right? So you gather bits of information, you connect the dots, and those revelations are part of what I want to see in your analysis. So I'll just quickly demonstrate using one of the stories that we've read by Alice Walker called The Flowers. And the story begins very innocently with a young girl who is just enjoying her day. We get some information from the author here that's important, right? If you read the study guide, which I always suggest that you do, you are familiar with what sharecropping is and how that is significant to this story and to this character. The fact that she comes from a family of sharecroppers, right? Now, every sentence in the story is intentional. Authors don't include things by accident. So here, when you see that it says that by 12 o'clock, her arms were laden with sprigs of her findings, time is always significant. 12 o'clock especially is significant because it signals a shift. It's when day turns into night or night turns into day. So anytime you see a mention of time, think about how that plays a role in what's happening. And most likely, this is going to signal that a change is coming. The author then gets a little bit more explicit in mentioning that she had been just as far before, but the strangeness of the land made it not as pleasant as her usual haunts. It seemed a little gloomy. So this tells you that something is going to happen, right? And it doesn't feel good. Like you get a sense, or you should get a sense, that something's different this time, and that you should be expecting a turn of events. So given this context of the time period that we're living in, based on the fact that we know she comes from a family of sharecroppers, and her age, right? We should be really interested in her reaction when she comes across the body. The fact that she doesn't scream or run away or, kind of like freeze in that like fight or flight response should tell us something. And what should that tell us? That's something that you would need to think about. What does that tell you? The fact that she comes across a lynched man, remains relatively calm, and at a young age of 10 is, aware enough and cognizant enough of her surroundings that she then lays her flowers down, should tell you something. And that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for in your analysis, right? So it's not something that you can find by reading explicitly, but it's something that you will have to think about, and something that you would, it's a conclusion that you would arrive upon based on what you know of this, the setting, the social context, the description of the character that we have, the description of her life that we have. So I hope that makes sense. This last line, "and the summer was over," is really significant as well. What does that mean? Obviously, it didn't happen that, like June 22nd or whatever occurred as soon as like she stepped on this dead man, right? I mean, there's something significant and symbolic about seasons and seasons changing, and what summer represents, and what it means for this character that the summer was now over for her. So again, just a few things to think about as you're reading. Summarize less, analyze more. Summary is a good first step, but what I'm looking for in your assignments is a deeper look at the implicit meanings. So as you go through the text, think about reading between the lines, making connections, and arriving at your own unique conclusions. I hope that's helpful. Thanks.